An AEW star refuses creative plans, multiple injuries in WWE, Sika Anoa'i passes away, and more. I'm Pete Quinnell, and this is the WrestleTalk News.
Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Last week, rumours began circulating from a now deleted Reddit post surrounding one Ricky Starks, claiming that he'd been arrested in Calgary and that there were issues backstage between he and AEW management. So, Fightful Select did some digging, reaching out to multiple sources to see what they could find, and the result was the Reddit post was partially right, sort of. According to their sources, Ricky Starks has been turning down some pitches to appear on screen, though not as frequently as the Reddit post seemed to suggest. This was described as being accurate to some degree. According to a source with direct knowledge of the situation, a pitched breakup with Big Bill and subsequent feud was the only pitch in the last few months that he refused. This was reportedly because Starks didn't see it benefiting either of them, particularly Big Bill, who AEW reportedly wanted to launch into a mega heel off the back of this proposed feud. Reportedly, Starks didn't think Big Bill losing a feud to him would end up being beneficial to Bill, and wanted them to have an amicable split, if anything. Starks reportedly has his critics within the company, with some people saying that Starks didn't want to do business. There have been other instances of Starks being upset with his creative direction, as last year around All In was noted as a pivotal point for his career. Starks wasn't booked for All In last year, and AEW were reportedly worried about potential fan backlash to that decision, so they ran a suspension angle for him instead. Starks reportedly wasn't in favour of being part of the tag team with Big Bill, but in particular wasn't on board with the lack of follow-up from his incredible strap match against Bryan Danielson at All Out. According to those that Starks reportedly spoke to, he felt like CM Punk leaving AEW hindered his momentum drastically, as it was after his departure that Starks' booking underwent a big change. Starks is reportedly medically cleared too, in case anyone thought he'd just been off TV for injury purposes. There was also reportedly conflicting information regarding how much contact Starks and Tony Khan have, as well as conflicting chatter surrounding many other aspects of his situation, including whether or not Starks wants to leave and go to WWE. One thing that all the sources were reportedly unanimous on, though, is that they hadn't heard of any situation regarding Ricky Starks and an arrest or even an incident in Canada. Any names that had been mentioned as part of this alleged incident have reportedly denied it occurred directly to Fightful Select, which doesn't mean it didn't happen, but there hasn't been anything substantial to these rumours as of yet. As Fightful said themselves in their report, this is one of the more conflicting stories they've covered based on their sources' personal stances and their information, and we certainly don't know the truth about any of this yet, so just bear that in mind going forward. Meanwhile, over in WWE, last night's episode of NXT seemingly confirmed an injury which will be keeping one star out for quite some time. Noam Dar mentioned on the show via video call that he's been out with injury, and mentioned that he tore his tendon right off the bone in his leg because of Ethan Page's attack, which sounds pretty nasty and like he's going to be out of action for quite a while if true, so wishing Noam Dar a speedy recovery. Meanwhile, on the main roster, the momentum continued with this week's episode of Raw, which had the follow-up to the Wyatt Six debut with that frankly awesome Bo Dallas interview. However, there was one sour point hanging over the show, which came in the form of an injury. According to WrestleVote, Ludwig Kaiser suffered an injury on the show during his match with Bron Breakker. It's unclear at this time exactly what the injury is or how severe it is, but WrestleVote also noted that before the injury, he was slated to be part of a Money in the Bank qualifying match next week alongside Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, but as was announced on Raw, Ilya Dragunov will be taking that spot instead, hoping for a speedy recovery for Ludwig Kaiser. Kaiser missing out on his Money in the Bank qualifier match due to injury is yet another instance of the Money in the Bank match being cursed. But do you know just how cursed it is? Over its history, it's had its ups, but it's really had its downs. This Saturday, we're releasing the next WrestleTalk original, looking at the entire cursed history of Money in the Bank. Here's a look.
But those literal highs can distract you from the gimmick's cursed history. The gimmick's famed unpredictability had become 50% more predictable. This coincided with a bit of good fortune for Edge and terrible fortune for Matt Hardy. The only thing that could derail him would be if his behaviour got him heat backstage. RVD beat him and then got arrested. WWE quickly struggled booking 2 good cash-in storylines a year, and the briefcase was becoming a crutch. Kennedy got injured from a Batista clothesline on a house show. The problem was, Kennedy wasn't actually injured. Big E would later say his run did little for him, and almost in a meta-commentary on women's achievement, the first one was won by a man. I'm Ollie Davis, and this is the cursed history of WWE's Money in the Bank.
Despite the sour note of Ludwig Kaiser's injury, it was a pretty great episode of Raw on Monday, and the viewership reflected that, with the show pulling an average of 1.184 million viewers, up from the previous week's 1.747 million. They also did well in the 18 to 49 demo, scoring a .61 rating, also up from last week's .55. These are great numbers for Raw, the largest viewership and demo number since the post-WrestleMania episode of Raw in April. Despite a bit of a lull following Mania 40, the show seemed to be picking back up in time for Money in the Bank and SummerSlam soon. Also on this episode of Raw, Pat McAfee was notably absent, with The Miz transitioning into commentary for the night instead. Now, some may have assumed that this was playing off the Wyatt 6 angle that happened on the Pat McAfee show, with the show being cut off before its conclusion. However, this was not the case, as Pat has now revealed that his father-in-law passed away and he missed the show to be with his family. Pat mentioned on the latest episode of his show that his father-in-law had been suffering from an infection of some sort and looked to be on the mend with an expected release from hospital. However, things took a turn for the worse, and he passed away. Sending best wishes and condolences to Pat and his family. Transitioning back now to regular wrestling news, WWE this year has been all over the crossovers, working with TNA during the Royal Rumble, and again with NXT, with Joe Hendry appearing on the show, and Tatum Paxley going over to TNA, AJ Styles heading over to Noah, Julia working with Marigold. There's a lot of people appearing in other companies right now, and that trend is set to continue, this time with GCW, as Shayna Baszler has been confirmed for Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 11 taking place on July 28th, a week before SummerSlam. She previously appeared at Bloodsport 10, beating Masha Slamovich. And you know who else was on that show? Minoru Suzuki. In unrelated news, Shayna has previously said that her dream opponent would be Minoru Suzuki, so you know what to do. Shayna Baszler vs Minoru Suzuki, book it! There might be another wrestler appearing in WWE before long though, but this time permanently after they leave AEW. Rumors and reports have circulated for years and years about WWE having an interest in signing Penta El Cero Miedo, and Penta himself recently addressed these rumors, also noting an interesting fact about his AEW contract. Now, this interview was conducted in Spanish, so the translation may be a little off, but this is the gist of what he said. Penta was interviewed by Lalo Elizarrarás on his YouTube channel, where Penta mentioned that he's known about these WWE rumors for years since Lucha Underground finished, but doesn't know exactly where they came from or what caused them. However, he said that he never got a tangible offer from WWE, and his career path took him to AEW. However, he also said that his AEW contract is due to expire on August 31st, and while he's happy in AEW right now, if there are other offers on the table, he'll consider them all. If a contract negotiation arises, then he'll do his best to make the right choice. He did also concede that hearing Cero Miedo chants at WrestleMania would be pretty sweet, and noted that he's not as young as he used to be, and this next contract could be his last big one. But it's not just about the wrestling too, as Penta mentioned that he has a lot of people that depend on him, not just his family, but businesses. He has a restaurant, a merchandise team, a gym, a school, and he promotes shows himself too. Now, sticking with masked luchadors, Rey Mysterio recently revealed a pitch he made to WWE that was rejected, which he's now actually quite thankful for. It might seem hard to think of it now if you're a new fan of WWE, but Dominic Mysterio used to be a babyface. I know, isn't it weird? He held the tag titles with his father Rey, but they split at Clash at the Castle 2022, with Dom turning heel. However, this might not have been how it all played out in an alternate timeline. Speaking with Chris Van Vliet, Rey revealed that he actually pitched to be the one to turn heel on Dominic at one point. I brought it up to Vince and it was brief, like, maybe I turn on Dom and we continue with something along the way. But getting feedback from some of my colleagues like, no, you're the babyface that could never be heel. You're Ricky Steamboat, you know? Nobody can ever see you as a heel. I don't think they would buy into it. And I'm kind of glad that I listened and that they didn't listen to me, because the best thing that could have happened is for Dom to become the heel and be the evil one. Still, it's fun to think about though, isn't it? Rey Mysterio as a heel working over babyface Dom? Maybe it would have worked, but more likely it wouldn't. Smart call. Transitioning now into some sad news, and it was announced last night that Sika Anoa'i, one half of the Wild Samoans, WWE Hall of Famer and father of Roman Reigns, passed away at age 79. The Wild Samoans were 3-time WWF Tag Team Champions, also wrestling in Georgia Championship Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Mid-South Wrestling. They were instrumental in helping foster future generations of the Samoan wrestling dynasty, training the vast majority of them. Roman Reigns commented on his father's passing, saying, "My family and I thank everyone for the outpouring of support in the name of my father, Poli'ivo Liati Sika Anoa'i, who will forever be remembered as one half of the Wild Samoans tag team. My father had a profound impact on my entire family, and we are forever grateful for the foundation he built for us. There's no way to fill the void left by his passing, but my sisters and I will do our best to represent him and his legacy. Rest in power, Dad. we love you. On a personal note, I was quite ignorant to wrestling history, but when the Bloodline story began, I did research into Samoan culture and the history of their family, and it was genuinely amazing learning about this era of wrestling, the impact Sika had upon it, and how their legacy lived on through future generations. If you don't know why the Wild Samoans were such an important tag team, I'd really recommend doing your own research. It's genuinely fascinating. And a lot of that research went into our Bloodline Family Tree Explained video that we made a while back, and it's still one of my favorite videos we've ever made. Rest in peace, Sika Anoa'i, sending best wishes and condolences to the Anoai family at this time. But while there's sadness over losing a loved one, the wrestling life cycle continues and new generations continue to step up where their ancestors laid the path. For the Samoan dynasty, that's all of the wrestlers we see on our screens right now. And in recent news in another family, Kevin Owens on NHL Now has shared that his son Owen, the namesake of KO's WWE name, has stepped into a wrestling ring for the first time at age 16, and I just think that's neat. Now, go hug a loved one, tell them you love them, and after you've done that, watch our Samoan Dynasty Family Tree video. Seriously, learn about it. It's fascinating.